SFFL Network. I'm Commissioner Saunders, and you're watching Fantasy Focus. There's no need for introductions here because Steve motherfucking Watts is in the house. What's up, man? The fantasy prodigy joins us today in what is his third season in the league. He is currently the only unbeaten team at 4-0-1. How's it going, Steve?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man, of course. So tell me, what's it like being the only unbeaten team in the SFFL? Do you or your guys feel any pressure?
No, my guys just go out there and have fun. I mean, when we play Marco and we get 40-point wins, there's no pressure on us. But when it's getting close with like AJ, then we get a little scared, but we pull it off. It's fine.
Yeah, that was a bit of a scare for you. Speaking of that game against AJ, he only had one win at the time. He still only has one win on the season. And let's be honest, 5-0 would look a hell of a lot better than 4-0-1. How aggravating is it knowing that just one more point would have sealed the deal?
You know, it's even more aggravating that Big Ben had 274 yards in that game. So he was 1 yard away from getting me that last point. And
yeah.
I was waiting for a stat correction after the game to see if they would give him like half a yard more or something and round it up, but it didn't happen. I put luck into my lineup multiple times that week, and that would have gotten me like a 20-point win, but I just overthought it, I guess, and took him out.
Jeez. In the 2018 draft selection process, you were tied for the best odds for the first selection. When the selection order came out, you were third in the pecking order. When your turn came around for your time to pick, how shocked were you that the first overall pick was still available?
You know, I wasn't entirely shocked that the first pick was available. I was surprised that the picks 5 and 8 were the only ones taken. I mean, if I had any choice, I would have chosen either first or 12th because, like, you want to get those back-to-back picks, and especially this year when you had, like, those 4 good running backs and, as the top 4 picks, like, the drop-off after that is so, heavy, and so I was excited to get the first pick because I knew I was going to get some true talent.
Yeah, I was so confused when I saw the first 2 guys who will not be named. Why would you choose 5 and 8? I'm sorry, and I think one of the guys was Jack, so I think we could tell it kind of worked out for Jack. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to name names, but the other person is kind of struggling right now too. So I don't understand. I completely agree with you, but I picked the 4th pick, like you said, those top 4 running backs, and has not worked out for me, obviously. Transitioning away from this year, I want to ask you about your rookie season in 2016. I talked last week with Marco about the 2016 draft, but I want the viewers to hear a little bit of the different side of the story. So when you got that message from me saying, yo, you want to join a fantasy league, we're drafting right now, what was your thought process when that happened? And looking back at it, do you think you made the right decision?
You know, I've never turned down a fantasy league, I don't think. I mean, that year that you asked me, I was in 7, so...
Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, the more leagues you're in, I feel like the more chance you have to bring home, the money, and so, I mean, it worked out well for the last 2 years, so I'm continuing with that, but, I mean, I definitely made the right decision. This is a great league and all that, but, yeah, it was fun.
Great. We're glad to have you, man. With you being a commissioner of another league, what are some of the challenges you face on a yearly basis?
So, AJ has put a lot of screenshots of the scores from my league into the group chat, and there's a lot of debate. I mean, yesterday Nolan said that the scoring injects HIV into his blood, so. But I mean, that was the biggest struggle for me in my league, was finding a scoring system that everyone could like. So that first year that I made it, I knocked up QB scoring, and that was there to stay. I mean, Big Ben had 7 touchdowns one game, 90 points. It was just absolutely insane. But and then last year there was lots of debate about a decimal system, and I really just absolutely hate decimals.
Same.
But
I hate decimals, man.
Yeah, I know. So like I wanted to make a more accurate way of scoring, but I didn't want to like have decimals, so I just multiplied everything by 10 and made 1 yard, 1 point.
So all the scores are in the thousands now?
Yes. So like this week I put up like 1,500, I think.
Holy shit.
I mean, yeah, it's a fun league though, and everybody likes the scoring now. Though there was some debate about it at first, but yeah, everybody's coming around to it.
Yeah. So obviously, I want to talk about your team a little bit here. So obviously, Todd Gurley is undeniably the best player on your team, and probably in all of fantasy, to be honest. But how important are guys like Juju, Joe Mixon, and T.Y. Hilton to your team?
You know, those 2 weeks where I didn't have Joe Mixon, I really just struggled with putting up the numbers I had in the first 2 weeks. And you could see that I dropped to 4th in league scoring, which is just not good enough for me. So, but now that I have him back, I know that my running backs are my most important players, and I think Nyheim Hines is going to be key for me going on through this year. He's been putting up good numbers. I checked like last night, he's like 15th PRK, which is a steal for where I got him in the draft.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then, but last week I didn't have Ty, and I was able to find like Chester Rogers, and I feel like you can do that pretty much any week with wide receivers, where you can just find a solid play.
And you're pretty famous for some of the streaming options you get off of waivers. I'll never forget. It was like Thursday night. It was back when Ty Montgomery was making his transition to running back. I see you're starting this dude named Ty Montgomery. He didn't even have a fucking picture in the fantasy ESPN app. I'm like, who the fuck is this dude? And he puts up like 25 points. I'm like, it's Steve. What can I expect, you know?
Yeah, you know, I always find those Kenny Gallaudays.
Oh, so. Of course, man. Why do you think this team has what it takes to take home the coveted Spence Fantasy Football League trophy?
Right now, I think that Jack Ponks is my main threat to taking home that trophy. And I think that I'm just more consistent than him and maybe have a little more depth because, I mean, so say the playoffs hit and then Breeze has a bad game, then he's just out, and I just can't imagine relying that much on those guys.
How do you think that contrasts from the fact that you have 4 Colts on your team? You have Chester Rogers, Hines, Andrew Luck, and T.Y. Hilton.
Well, you know, I start to play Colts players every week because, like, I'm a Colts fan and I know that they suck. So, like, I'm like, okay, well, they're going to get down, like, 28 points in the first half, and then Luck's going to have to throw the ball a lot. So, that's, like, my thought process going in. But, like, I mean, I keep a lot of those guys on my bench. But, like, T.Y. is getting starts, and Nyheim might get a few later this year.
Okay. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, especially like someone like Jack. He's kind of in the same situation. He just has such a high-powered offense, and the Saints' defense is just so trash. There's a lot of points to be scored every week with those 3 guys he has, you know. So, is there anything you'd like to say about your upcoming matchup with Nolan Flaherty, who's 4-1 coming into this week?
You know, Nolan's got a good squad, and I checked the projections earlier today, and I'm projected to win, like, about 10 points, but, I mean, that doesn't really mean anything. Last week, I was projected to beat Marco by 10, and I beat him by, like, 50. And then against AJ was projected to win by 10, and then I tied him. So, I mean, projections can't really tell you anything, but Nolan has a good squad out there, so it'll be a good game.
Yeah, I think you and Nolan, maybe outside of, like, along with like Jake and Julian, guys like that, you guys are probably some of the smartest fantasy players in this league by far, and I think it shows through the all-time records you guys have and all that stuff. So it's always great to see 2 juggernauts going at it when they're at their best, at the beginning of the season right now.
Yeah, and I've taken down Julian and Jake already this year, so we'll see how I can do against Nolan.
Nolan's next on the hit list. Lastly, before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to say to the league?
I don't think so. No.
All right, man. Well, thanks for stopping by, Steve. It was a pleasure getting to hear from one of the greatest fantasy football minds I've ever come across. Enjoy your junior year at OHS because, trust me, it goes by fast. Good luck in week 6 and for the rest of the season.
Thanks.
Coming up on week 6 of the Alum Note, we have the weekly power rankings presented by Steve Watts, Stat of the Week presented by Dylan Patel, and much more. I also want to give a special thanks to our editor of this video, Colin Meyer. And thanks for tuning in for the SFFL Network. I'm Spencer Saunders, and this is Fantasy Focus.